My name is Ed Lazzara. I've been a member here of Unity of Salem for about 15 years now. I'm not the minister. I'm filling in for Reverend Victoria Echemendi this morning. My notes. Okay, so about 3 weeks ago, Reverend Victoria walked up to me and extended this invitation to give the Sunday lesson. Now, imagine that was you. What thoughts go through your mind at that moment? Okay, so maybe one of the thoughts that went through your mind is, "Oh, not me. That's not mine to do." That's a saying we have here at Unity. Sometimes we know we have very clarity that it's not ours to do. But for the rest of us who know that, well, maybe I do have something to share. Maybe I have something of value. What would you say? Okay. So possible answers might be, well, can I think about that, please? With 3 weeks' notice, it's not a lot of time. The church needs a lot to prepare for these events. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's a possible answer. Or you might say, maybe, or you could say, okay. So when we say okay, what does that mean? You're agreeing to do this, but there's sort of a bit of a hesitation behind that word, right? It's like, well, it's not something I would have chosen, but since you asked me, I'll do it, right? I thought about all of this stuff went through my head, right, before answering her, and it just took a bit of a second to think, and my answer was yes. And so thinking about the song, it took bravery, it took a little courage to just say yes, without hesitating, because I know what I know about Unity and what I've learned from coming here is that when you say yes, Spirit supports you. And I knew that despite any hesitation I might have, well, is my message going to be okay? Will it be in line with the teachings? Will it be enough to say? Will it be too much? All of that I didn't really have to worry because I know all of the forces of the universe would be unleashed in the moment of my saying yes. Because our words are so powerful. Okay? And so that's the theme that I wanted to talk about today, was about the power of our words, the power of our language. And so I'm going to what I consider language to be a tool of creation, right? When we think about Genesis and the story of how God created the earth, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. There was no hesitation. It happened immediately, right? And that's how the word works. That's how the spoken word, not just the word of God, but our word, which really is the word of God, because we are the manifestation of the divine on earth. And so language is a tool. It's a divine gift in which what starts in our mind as a thought, and Charles Fillmore talked a lot about thought and how our thoughts create. Once we have a thought, the next step, we put it into words. Okay? And that process of putting our thought into word begins the process of creation and brings it to being. Okay, just like in the reading that Carolyn did such a wonderful job of reading today, thank you, the Logos, right? And also I want to just give a shout out to all the Sunday assistants, right? And we really appreciate the work that they do to bring our service to you. So Logos, God as the creative power. To emphasize the power of words, Jesus said in Matthew 24:35, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words shall never pass away." There's a power behind that, right? The power of the word will always be here, right? This earthly situation that we're living is temporary, and it will pass on to something else, but our spirit, our word, will always be here for all eternity. And so I'm going to take a little bit of a detour now And Reverend Georgie said, in giving guidance to some people who are Sunday speakers, it's okay to have a detour in your talk, as long as you let people know about it. So thank you, Georgie. So my academic training is all about, my whole life has been about language. And I was trained in the study of linguistics, which is the scientific study of language. Now, not all linguists are multilingual. Okay? Because a linguist considers himself or herself a scientist, and we study the phenomenon of language. What is it all about? What is it made of? What does it mean? Right? How does it distinguish us, say, from animals? And so in my studies of linguistics, one thing that I learned is that what language is a random set of symbols, really vibration, right, that's associated with meaning. And in each language, it's different sounds. There's no specific sound that has a certain meaning, right? So I could say, "Я тебя люблю," which means "I love you," right, in Russian. Or I could say, "Yo te amo," different sounds. Or I say in English, "I love you." They all have the same creative power, but they're different sounds that are just randomly associated. And beyond that, there's a complex set of rules that take these random sounds and put them into order, in different orders in different languages, but lots of rules. And there was what makes us separate from animals is the things we can do with those sounds, right? So animals can express their basic needs, like I'm hungry or I want to go out, things like that, but that's about it. Right? There's no structure, really. It's just bark, right? And you know what they mean because you live with this animal, but they can't say, tomorrow I'd like to have my meal about an hour early, right? So probably the most famous linguist of our time is Noam Chomsky. Has anyone heard of Noam Chomsky? You may have heard of him for his political views. He's very strong political views, but as his work at MIT was in linguistics, and Chomsky revolutionized the field of linguistics because until his time, linguists were mostly concerned with looking at old texts and seeing, what did language look like 100, 200, 300 years ago. But Chomsky was interested in how do we speak now? What is it about this language that shows, what can it show us about being human? And so some of the things he discovered that were quite revolutionary were, first of all, that language is not something we learn. Language is something we are born with. Now, of course, children don't come out of the womb speaking, right? They are exposed to some language, but after a real short period of time and a short amount of, relatively, a small amount of input, they learn to speak a native language perfectly. Okay? By the age of 5, pretty much all kids speak pretty much adult level language. They refine it a little bit after that, but they've got all the rules down by then, right? And so what he discovered was that that there's a limit to what language can be. And by studying the different facets of language, the phonetics, the phonology, the way words are formed, the way sentences are formed, he realized that we can't just, there's not an endless amount of possibilities of ways to put words together. There are specific rules that each language has, and they all kind of fall into these categories. And so there's a theory called the poverty of the stimulus, which means there is no way that a child can learn enough by listening to be able to reproduce the language. It's kind of hard to get your head around, but that there has to be something there besides just what they're hearing. There's already a structure in our brains. Okay, so all of this, what is this all about? Why am I saying this? We're hardwired to speak. We're hardwired to communicate in a language, because this also applies to sign language. And that we learn language kind of the way a bird learns to fly, right? So a bird doesn't have to be taught, right? Doesn't really have to observe flying, right? But at some point, the parent pushes the bird out of the nest, and the bird starts flying, and it's at the right time, right? It couldn't happen before that, and if you wait too long, then the bird can't fly anymore. Exact same thing about language. It's something that comes to us at the right time because it's ready. Okay? So all of this, why did I bring this into here today, is that this is a gift, a divine gift that we were all given. This incredible ability, this incredible complex tool that we have. And in unity, we discover the power that we have in those words that we use, in the language that we use. And so, how are we going to use this gift that we were given? So I'd like to speak of just 3 ways today that I think that we can use language to express the good, the holy, and the beautiful. And this is an expression that we use in the Way of Mastery, which is a Zoom course that I do, that Kurt and I do. The good, the holy, and the beautiful is what we want to express. Right? And so the 3 ways that we can use language to express all of this is, number 1, gratitude. Number 2, affirmations. And number 3, positive self-talk. So I'd like to talk a little bit about these 3. So first of all, in terms of gratitude, gratitude is the most sacred prayer we can give. And the most powerful thing that we can utter with our lips is gratitude. To be able to say thank you is acknowledging what is and being so present and so in a positive space about it, no matter what it is, even if our minds, our limited minds may think, well, this is not such a great thing. We don't know what a thing is for. Ultimately, we don't know. And so to be grateful and know that everything is unfolding in a divine way, in the way it's supposed to. So it's embracing what is. So I'd like to just do a little bit of an exercise here. And I'd like you to all think of, right now, of a person that you're grateful for. Okay? And think of the reasons why you're grateful for that person. Has your energy shifted? Do you feel a difference? I felt a difference in the room in that moment, right? Gratitude is a way to expand our consciousness. It's a way to embrace what is and use our words in a way to, and we didn't actually speak at this time, but the precursor to speaking is the thought, right? It's good to have a daily practice of gratitude. So not too long ago, I decided I'm going to do what do we call it? A gratitude journal, a nightly gratitude journal. Before I went to bed each night, I thought, I'm going to write 10 things that I'm grateful for. And so every night I had a little chair that I went to, and so I could be alone, and I got out my journal and I started writing. And it was really fun. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my work, etc. And I would write them. But after, I'm just going to give you my personal experience of why this wasn't optimal for me. Now, obviously for different people, it's going to work differently. After a while, I'm grateful for. It was really a mouthful of words, And the words I'm grateful kind of lost their meaning by repeating them so much. So it occurred to me one day, okay, instead of saying that, I'm going to say I love. And so I said, I love my family. I love my work. I love my community. And wow, what a difference that made for me. And so that began a new kind of practice for me in my spiritual practice. And I call it loving myself to sleep. So take it or leave it. If it works for you, I would recommend it, right? What is it that you love? Okay? And also during our day, how often do we take the time to thank our friends, to thank our family members for simple things that they do all the time? So thank you, Garth, for all the work you do. Thank you, Danita, for doing PowerPoint. really grateful. Let's all say thank you to the people in the sound booth. Okay, number 2, affirmations. So what is an affirmation but a declaration of intention, right? And Reverend Victoria has been talking a lot about intention and our speakers this month. And so it goes along with what we've been discussing. So just as our words create, an affirmation, which is a set of words, sets in motion what we want to manifest in our lives. Okay? This is a positive statement, and it's given in the present tense as if, right? As if it were already true, right? For something that we're desiring in our lives. So if this wish is in alignment with divine will, it will manifest. Okay? Now, there's a dichotomy here that bugged me for the longest time, and that was about, 1 second here, let me find that note on my other card. Yes, intention versus spirit-led. Is that a contradiction, right? We're supposed to be living intentional lives, right? We're in the driver's seat, and yet also we talk about being spirit-led, allowing spirit to guide us. So which is it? Right? And that has, it's made me think a lot, right? But the conclusion I've come to is it's really the same thing. It's one and the same thing. So making an intention and being spirit-led are the same. How is that? Because think about our higher selves, right? Our higher self is our God self, the divine part of who we are. When we're in alignment with that divine self, then we are following spirit. It is the same. Now, if our wish is not in alignment with divine self, maybe our wish could have an effect of hurting someone else, then probably that won't be manifest, right? But if so when we make our manifestations, when we make our affirmations, we want to make sure that we are in alignment. So it's good to meditate, sit for a moment, and just be in a place of quiet and think, is my desire in alignment with divine will? And so I'd like to give an example of how I've manifested something in my life. And that is, I've told this story before, but I haven't been up here giving a talk in probably 5 years. So many of you have probably not heard this story. Some of you know it. How my husband and I became parents. So we decided one day, let's become parents. I said, I'm ready now, because I had waited a while. I wasn't quite sure if this was what I wanted. But when the day came, I knew it was time. And this was in alignment with divine will, because I believe that we were destined to raise a child together. And so I put the word out there. We become parents. And we were in agreement, in alignment with that. And then we created our manifestation. We created our affirmations by putting little posters all over the house. Says, we are parents. We have a child. And everywhere we went, we had a reminder of that. It was like presencing the moment. The creation of that child happened starting in that moment. And but it took a while. And now sometimes we don't know. The universe has its own timetable. And, we have to be patient sometimes. And so we went to a New Year's Eve party. We had already waited about 2 years at that point. We were in an adoption pool. And it wasn't happening up till then. But we didn't lose faith. We're still there. And at this New Year's Eve party, we right before midnight, everyone stood in a circle and said what their New Year's resolution was. Well, when it came our turn, we stated our affirmation. And one of the things we were thinking of is we should be more specific about this. And so instead of just saying we are parents, we decided to put a date on it because we didn't want to wait anymore. Right? This was January. So we said, well, I was busy doing a play at the time, and so it'd be convenient if it happened after the play was over. So that would have been about March. So I said, we become parents in March. And I said it as an affirmation, present tense. And lo and behold, March came. And guess what? Leo came along. And it's funny because the month marched on. I'm thinking, okay, nothing's happening. But we still said it every day. We become parents in March. And on March, it was the second to last day of the month. There was only one day left in the month. So I said, before we went to bed, I said, we become parents tomorrow. What do you know? But the phone rang the next day. We got the call, and Leo was born on the 30th, and he came into being into our lives. Now he'll be turning 20 in a couple of months. So they do work. Affirmations do work. All right. And so the best version of affirmations is when we get to the essence of it, right? Now this was a very specific example, but also to think about what is it that I want? Maybe not so physically what I want. Maybe I've got a leg that's hurting me, which I have been for a while. I want to be able to walk, and I want to be able to get where I'm going with confidence and grace, right? So dig deeper beyond just, I want my leg to heal, right? Why? What is it behind? I want joy in my life. I want prosperity in my life, right? And then use those words. Yes, the physical universe is an illusion, right? But love, joy, peace, those are real. Those are the things that will last forever. All right, so the third one, positive self-talk. Oh, I'm such an idiot. How many of us have said that to ourselves? Right? We don't even think about it, but we're actually making an affirmation. Why would we want to say that? Right? Why do we do that? So I think a good lesson here today is for us to ask ourselves, what are we saying? What are those little things that we say to ourselves? Or how about, I'm sick? Isn't that perpetuating the notion? Isn't that creating more sickness? Instead, how about saying, I'm healing? I'm on the path to good health, right? Then you're setting out this intention with your word, with your language, that invites all of the forces of the universe to support you in your desires. We say to each other, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. And often we laugh at that, thinking, what does that have any meaning at all? But maybe it's okay to say I'm fine, right? Because when you say if you really mean it, right? And even if the physical body is giving you other messages, to say I'm fine, because you know at your core who you are fine. Again, it's you're putting it out there and creating that health. You're creating that joy and happiness in your life. So things like complaining, gossiping, worrying, those all manifest negatively. So instead, find the joy and declare the joy, and trust the universe will provide. Okay, so I have another exercise. So I'm going to ask you to step outside your comfort zone a little bit. I did to be up here, so you can too, right? I'm really very much into interactive experiences. So instead of just speaker and listener, let's do a little bit of participation here. So just notice who's sitting next to you, right? And you probably already know who's sitting next to you, okay? Before we do anything, I want you to all think about something positive that you could say to this person sitting next to you, okay? I'm sure there's something you can come up with. It could be, I want it to be heartfelt though, okay? Don't just invent something just to do the exercise, right? Try to go beyond the surface. Maybe something you appreciate about this person. Maybe you haven't even met this person, but from their energy you know, right? Something wonderful about them. If you can't think of anything to say, maybe just I love you. And it's okay to say I love you, right? We live in a society that puts all these labels on who we can say I love you to, right? But here at Unity, we love each other. I love all of you. Yeah, it's just so great to have you all here today. Okay, so I'm going to, in a second, ask you to do that. I want you to make eye contact and say the words that you want to say. Okay? So go ahead and do that now, please. And you can also say it to yourself. You have such a beautiful, positive energy. You really do. Okay, so please start to wrap it up. Respond in any way appropriate that you feel. Okay. In my classroom, I have a little bell to say, okay, it's time. I teach Spanish, by the way. We do a lot of group activities. Not quite this deep, but... Okay. Do you feel the energy shift in the room? Isn't that amazing? The power that we have with our words, right? You just contributed to a cosmic shift, okay? In the Way of Mastery, that book I referred to earlier that I'm doing a study with online, Jeshua says, and I love this quote, "Each time you think a loving thought, you have literally blessed all infinite realms of creation." So you just did that. We just did that. So every time we do that, we are making a difference in the world. Okay? Just by using this great tool we have called our words, our language. So again, I ask you, listen to your language. What are you saying? What are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to others? What are you setting in motion with your precious words? So I would invite you to bring about our own Garden of Eden with our words, right here in our own world. Okay? So we're going to move into a space of meditation. And I also consider myself a poet. And I always said, to me, I always had a deep feeling that the most beautiful poem was a blank page. And the reason for that is that blank page is so full of potential. It could be anything. And I always saw the beauty in that. And so the same thing with spoken language, that silence is really the most sacred space. And so I would invite you all to do that. And Angela is going to be playing some beautiful music for us to help center us. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And think about your gratitude, what you're so grateful for, what you love. And just be with that space. You don't have to do anything. Just be present. And the music will continue for a while, and then the music will fade in a while, and just be with the silence at that point as well. Now take a deep breath. And then release. Another breath. And let go. Find your way back into your seat. Feel your body, the chair beneath you. And you can slowly open your eyes.